So let's review. ELPS has 5 components, 5 categories, right? Learning strategies, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So I try to focus the afternoon on learning strategies. So you should have a second PowerPoint. Yes? Yes or not? Okay? Because to me, again, this is always about what am I going to be doing in the classroom tomorrow? Okay? So there's 8 of them. So what is the purpose of the learning strategy? It is supposed to be geared to get the student to think and become more aware about their own learning. It should be able, not be content specific, but be interdisciplinary, something that they could take from their English class to their math class, to their science class, to their social, to their art class, anywhere, and apply these learning strategies. Okay? So that is the most important part of it. Okay? It is strategies that are plans or behaviors that'll help them. So I'm like a Pinterest queen. I'm like addicted to Pinterest. It is, I should be in rehab for it. It's really bad. And they put that education little thing in there, and if I don't stop myself, I'm like going cross-eyed, and I'm just like looking and looking and looking. But I did come across this really cool one recently on note-taking. The annotations for note-taking, that's a behavior, right? You could teach them that now. Okay, so put a square around all the words that you didn't understand that you need to go back and look for a definition for. Highlight any key terms. Underline, yada, yada, yada. Put bullets for steps. But if you establish that from the beginning, then that becomes a behavior that they address with your classroom. And that really is up to you what behavior you want them to have, okay? We need to give them strategies that will help them, 1, understand, 2, remember, 3, recall information. So did you guys get to do all those things with the fan and pick and inside-outside circle? Yes, okay. Help them practice independently. Okay, so again, these strategies, you should be able to take them outside of your classroom and apply them to other places. Okay, so there's a lot of them. Okay, and in your little folder, your orange folder, you have a yellow sheet. Okay, now we're going to be using the side that looks like Cornell notes. Do you see it? Are you familiar with Cornell notes? Okay, if you're not, they basically were designed in Cornell University when the professors there were seeing that students really had a difficult time with notes and taking notes and knowing how to take notes and being able to take their notes to study. Okay, so you know, over the years, you have to become, I don't know, you have to stay interested in your profession. That's basically what it comes down to, and not become complacent, right? So, you know, I would get so much training or this and that, or thinking maps, or interactive student notebooks, or something like that, and I would become pretty proficient at using them. So then I'm like, okay, well, what else can I do this year? What's something new for me? So I started doing Cornell notes with my students. And one of the things that I was told is like, well, it's going to be very hard for ELL students to do Cornell notes because they don't know what notes to take, yada, yada, yada. Well, I decided, okay, I could scaffold this, right? So then Cornell notes, basically the way they work is this left side should be blank, right? And then you should have an area for lines and then an area on the bottom for a summary. Now this could be done with regular lined paper. You just have the person fold it, right? And then, okay. And then on this side, they're supposed to just take their notes. Theoretically, the way this works. They're supposed to take their notes. Then after the period's over, their day's over, they're supposed to go back, read over their notes, and write down key points or questions or things that they had. And that should be on the left side. And at the bottom of the paper, a summary of the notes. What were those notes about? Okay. While I still have my students do this, I use these ranging from my freshman biology classes to my AP bio class. I use them. That's what I like. I don't have to change anything. So what I did is then I scaffold it for them. I would put in questions so that as we're going through the notes, and if they see an answer to one of those questions, then that's a light for them saying, oh, this is important. Like, I need to write this part down. This is something she was asking me about. Okay? She's going to ask me about this later, so I better know it. So then what happens is that when you fold it over, Then you have questions here and answers here. So then you could study. You could say, okay, how many learning strategies, student expectations are there in ELPS? Have you noticed I'm starting with easy questions, low-level questions, key knowledge, and then you would work your way up to open-ended questions, okay? Scaffold. How are ELLs supposed to use learning strategies? Describe three, and I have my students read me the questions beforehand. Okay, what are going to be the questions today? Let's read the questions. So then they read the questions to me, and then as we're taking the notes, they're listening for that. Okay? Describe 3 areas that strategies can help with ELLs. Can help ELLs with. What would you say is the overall goal of these learning strategies? So do you see how it went from very specific basic knowledge to overall what's your opinion? Okay? So you work your way up. So that's the purpose of that. And so I want you to take your notes on this for now. Okay? And you're going to come across some of the answers. But what I like is I could put diagrams for them. Okay? So I gave you a space here for this particular map. Okay? Now what's really important is that you don't write every single word down, because we will be here forever. Okay? So there's another thing. I want you to paraphrase, read it, write down the key points. Okay? So there's 8 of them. Okay? That's one of the answers to one of those questions, by the way. There's 8 of them. Okay? There's 8 different strategies that they recommend. Okay? First thing, A, how can we access prior knowledge? Again, if it's floating out there and you can't connect it to prior knowledge, then it makes it very difficult for them. Not just ELL students, everybody. You guys are the same way. Okay? B, monitor oral and written language through self-corrective techniques. So you want to be able to provide them with self-corrective techniques. C, here's the meat. Here's the steak. Strategic learning techniques. So this is when you think of like concept mapping, drawing, memorizing, compare and contrasting, vocabulary, things like that. That's this. Speak to request assistance. Now I think this is really funny. I have a poster in my classroom that has like different phrases that they could say. If it says, if I don't understand, then it gives them questions. Well, then of course they're high school students and they're going to be high school students. Yeah, I can't say that word because I have a microphone, right? But they would say, we're in AP Bio. These are like top number 2, 3 kids in the class. They don't need help with this, but they'd be like, can my classmate help me with the answer? I'm like, no. Can you elaborate more on? I'm like, be quiet. All they were doing, they're starting to read those things for me so that I could like give them answers to questions. So they start practicing that. Okay, but circumlocution is basically a fancy way of saying you trying to come up with words to come up with what you're originally trying to say that you don't know the word for. You're like going around the meaning, but you're almost there. You can't put your finger on the right word. Okay, internalize new language by using and reusing it in meaningful ways. Make it accessible. Distinguish between formal and informal English. And then help them with their inductive and deductive techniques.